What a final and what an absolutely epic story. There were so many records broken and waiting to be broken in this final match. And in the end, it actually just came down to one. And that was the one that really mattered. And South Africa was able to pick up that record. In short, the game started with South Africa dominating a lot of the physical parts of the game. They were really suffocating the New Zealand team in so many ways. For much the first half, it was nearly impossible for the All Blacks to get out of their own half and really to get any type of momentum. As New Zealand always do, they find a way. In that second half, they crept back into the game and they scored the only try of the game through some brilliant interplay. It was a non-stop slugfest with neither of the teams flinching. But in the end, South Africa came away with a 1 point victory to get their record fourth World Cup. This was honestly a game of 46 Warriors, and you could not fault one player from either side for not giving absolutely everything. And I have non-stop respect for all of these players in terms of what they did for their nations and the way that they played. The All Blacks faced a Springbok team that wouldn't back down, and anything throughout the match that they tried to do, they just kept struggling to find a way. But they didn't stop probing and they didn't stop trying and didn't stop innovating throughout. They adapted very well to give themselves a chance in this game. They played hard, good, solid rugby, and this despite being starved of space and time, which they so enjoy. Brodie Retallick was immense for the New Zealand team, and he nearly single-handedly dismantled the South African line-out. On the day, he was really one of the most formidable forces for the All Black team, and you could see the Brodie that really won World Rugby Player of the Year a couple of years ago. He was outdone by the new World Rugby Player of the Year, and the effort that Artie Sevilla put in was just amazing. What makes Artie Sevilla even more amazing is that he's able to actually produce that in every single game that he plays. That is what he does for 80 minutes, and that is spectacular, and I think he thoroughly deserves to be World Player of the Year. Something else that must be said is fighting an uphill battle with only 14 men for a large part of the game is courageous, and it's valiant and honourable, I think, in so many ways, and 100% credit to the All Blacks for that. After the game, Sam Cane was also interviewed, and the person interviewing him thought that they would get in a little bit of juicy content there, and they said, but what about the red card that you received? And Sam Cane just simply said, you should have known better, you should have tackled lower. And you have to give 100% respect for that type of class response that you got from the New Zealand captain in an interview where he could have so easily taken a stab at the officials and where he could have lashed out. He decided to take the high road, and while he was hurting like hell, he thought, okay, I'm representing the All Blacks, and I'm going to represent the All Blacks with honor all the way through, regardless of the situations. The Springboks, on the other hand, they were just something else on the day. You could see that there was a fire in this team that could not be put out. Didn't matter what happened throughout the game, you were not going to stop the Springbok team. They started out like a house on fire, and they absolutely suffocated the New Zealanders for that time on the ball, for just space to work in, and it was brutal and relentless. On the day, nobody embodied this more than Pieter-Steph du Toit. It was an absolute force to be reckoned with in this final, and two of the really impressive tackles that he put in on Jordie Barrett stopped promising line-out moves from the All Blacks. All of the hits that he just kept on putting in counted towards the 28 tackles that he made on the day. Just to put that into context, the leading tackler throughout the tournament, Marcus Kremmer, who was absolutely amazing, played in 7 games. He was the outright leader in total tackles, and he averaged just over 13 tackles per game. With ball in hand, South Africa had a couple of good runs, but they weren't really that convincing while they were attacking in general play like that. There were times where you thought they were going to breach the defense, but New Zealand didn't allow them to get in those runs. What was, however, very evident is that the South Africans definitely played for position on the field And then they combined that with their suffocating defense. And that is the strength of national coach Jacques Ninabo. He is known as a defensive coach, and that was what the team focused on. And on the basis of that, they were able to just keep New Zealand at bay the whole time. What that did in return is it put them in a position where they could score the 12 points that they needed. It was within kicking range for Andre Pollard, while the reverse was also true. They were also just able to keep the New Zealanders away far enough from their goal line that after, I think New Zealand made the mistake of not going for poles for some of the ones that they went for the corner, but for the rest of the kicks, they were just out of range. And I feel really bad for Geordie Barrett having all of that pressure on his shoulders, trying to put over a kick from the very edge of his range, maybe a little outside it, to try and win it for the All Blacks with very little time to spare. So even though that might not look like something in particular that the South African team did, that was planned. That was planned. They kept them out of striking range for large parts of the game. That overall defensive effort was, however, just emphasized once again with the try-saving tackle from the 80 kilograms of Kurtley Arendse on the 105 kilograms worth of Ricky Ioane. That try-saving tackle in the corner, that just showed the type of fight that was in the South African team. And it just showed they were not going to let this New Zealand team run riot. Had New Zealand been given the chance, they would have put up a massive score. In the same way, if the New Zealanders allowed the South Africans free rein, they would have done the same to them. South Africa played to their strengths, and a lot of their focus was on that field position. And they did that brilliantly. Overall, though, it was a battle for the ages, and it was a very tense affair. And I just think it was exactly the way that a final should have been played, and it was something amazing to see. Another one-point final that I really enjoyed a couple of years ago was when New Zealand actually beat France with the same margin, and that was also an epic low-scoring final. What I liked about the final, though, is it was the match between these two age-old rivals in world rugby, and it was just something extra spectacular to behold. However, there's one thing that is a little difficult to quantify about the Springbok team that you would not understand if you're not a South African. And I'm not being funny about it, it just is what it is. If you're South African, you understand it. And I think the best way to probably sum that up is based on something that Dricus du Plessis, our UFC fighter, what he screamed into the camera after beating Robert Whittaker. This was done, interestingly enough, by Damian Willemse as well after the game, where he held the crest on his chest, and what he said was, "Hulle weet nie wat ons weet nie." Just simply translates into, they don't know what we know.